ಸಂಸಾರದಾವ ನಲಲಿಡಲೋಕ ತ್ರಣಯ ಕಾರುಣ್ಯ ಗಣ ಗಣತ್ವಂ ಪ್ರಾಪ್ತಸ್ಯ ಕಲ್ಯಾಣ ಗುಣರ್ನವಸ್ಯ వందే గురు శ్రీచరణరవిందం మహాప్రభో కీర్తన నిత్య గీత వాదిత్రమాద్యాన్ మనసోరసేనా రోమాంచకంపా సుతరంగబాజో వందే గురు శ్రీచరణరవిందం శ్రీ విగ్రహారాధన నిత్యానానా శృంగారతాన్మందిరమజనాదో యుక్తస్య భక్తాం చ నియుంజతోపి వందే గురు శ్రీచరణరవిందం చతుర్విధా శ్రీ భగవత్ ప్రసాద స్వాదాన్న తృప్తాన్ హరిభక్త సంగాన్ క్రీతైవ తృప్తిం భజతా సదైవ వందే గురు శ్రీచరణరవిందం శ్రీరాధికా మాధవయోరపారా మాధుర్యలీలా గుణరూపనాం ప్రతీక్షణా స్వాదనలోలుపాస్య వందే గురు శ్రీచరణరవిందం నికుంజయునో రతికేలిసేద్యై యాయాలి భేర్యుక్తిర్ అపేక్షణీయా తత్రాదిదాక్షాద్ అతివల్లభాస్య వందే గురు శ్రీచరణరవిందం సాక్షాదరిత్వేంద సమస్త శాస్త్రే ఉక్తాస్తథా భావ్యత ఏవ సాధ్వి किन्तु प्रभोजा प्रिय एव तास्य वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम् यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादान् न गति कुतोऽपि यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादान् न गति कुतोऽपि ध्यायन् सुवास्यं तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यं वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम् वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दं वन्दे गुरु श्रीचरणरविन्दम् 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 नमः ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपेस्ताय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरा भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरा भक्तवृंद जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौरा भक्तवृंद Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय राधा नीलमाधव राधा नीलमाधव राधे जयो जगन्नाथ जयो बलदेवा जयो सुभद्रमा जयो सुदर्शना जयो सीताराम 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 जयो लक्ष्मण हनुमान जयो लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जयो लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जयो लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जयो लक्ष्मी नरसिंह जयो गौरनीताय जयो गौरनीताय जयो गौरनीताय जयो गौरनीताय जयो प्रभुपादा जयो प्रभुपादा जयो प्रभुपादा जयो प्रभुपादा जयो गुरुदेवा जयो गुरुदेवा जयो गुरुदेवा जयो गुरुदेवा निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
जय
इस्लाम पीपीटी भक्तिवेदांत इंस्टीट्यूट फाउंडर आचार्य श्रील प्रभुपाद की
जय
जय ओम विष्णुपाद ब्रह्महंस प्रजका आचार्य स्तोत्र सदस्य श्रीमती शिवांग ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर श्रील प्रभुपाद की
जय
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव की
जय
नाम आचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की
जय
प्रेमी से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरी गोवर्धन की जय श्री ब्रजभूमि वृंदावन धाम की जय श्री नवद्वीप मायापुर धाम की जय श्री पुरुषोत्तम जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय श्री अयोध्या धाम की जय गंगा माई की जय यमुना माई की जय भक्ति देवी की जय तुलसी देवी की जय समावेत भक्तवृंद की जय हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gaurang. All glory to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
नमस्ते नरसिंहाय प्रह्लाद दायिने हिरण्यकाशीपूर्वक्षः शिलाटङ्कानखालये इतो नरसिंहा परतो नरसिंहा यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंहा बहिर्नरसिंहा हृदये नरसिंहा नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपद्ये तव करकमलवरे नखाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गाम् दलिता हिरण्यकशिपू तनुवृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे तव करकमलम् केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जगदीश हरे जय नरसिंहदेव 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 जय नरसिंहदेव जय जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय 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 प्रभुपाद 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि विघ्न विनाशक लक्ष्मी नरसिंहदेव भगवान की जय भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय निताई गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल
वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य विष्णुपाते पदे देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः
वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य विष्णुभक्ति देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः
वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य विष्णुपाते पदे देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः
वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य विष्णुभक्ति देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः
वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य विष्णुपाते पदे देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः
वृंदाय तुलसीदेवाय प्रियाय केशवस्य विष्णुभक्ति देवी सत्यवताय नमो नमः
वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय।
नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः कृष्ण प्रेयसी तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः प्रेयसी नमो नमः राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ये अभिलाषी राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ये अभिलाषी जे तोमार शरण लय तारा वांछ पूर्ण होय कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावनवासी मोरा ये अभिलाष विलास कुंजे दियो वास नयने हेरिबो सदा जुगल रूप राशि ये निवेदन दरो साखीर अनुगत करो सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी दीन कृष्ण दासे को ये न मोरा होय श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न बासी श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेमे सदा ये न भासी नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे पापानि अधिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणश्यन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी, जय तुलसी महारानी. जय वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदा देवी, जय वृंदा देवी. जय जय प्रभुपाद, 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 जय जय प्रभुपाद. जय जय गुरुदेव, 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 जय जय गुरुदेव. प्रियाय केशवस्य च कृष्णभक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्तवत्ताय नमो नमः. वृन्दाय तुलसीदेव्याय प्रियाय केशवस्य च कृष्णभक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्तवत्ताय नमो नमः. वृन्दाय तुलसीदेव्याय प्रियाय केशवस्य च कृष्णभक्ति प्रदे देवी सत्तवत्ताय नमो नमः. वृंदा देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय.
O Tulasi, Beloved of Krishna, I bow down
before you again.
my desire to attend the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has wishes fulfilled. Please have mercy upon him and make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire also grant me residence in the precious groves of Shiva and Dhaam. Thus within my wish I shall behold the beautiful person Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me follow a careful dance of the Virgin. Please give me the privilege devotional service and make me own maidservant. This very fallen lowly servant of Krishna prays. May I always swim in the love, Shri Radha and Govinda. Srimati Tulsi Maharani ki jai. There are 10 fences in the matter of chanting holy names that should be avoided, and they are as follows. 1. To bless in the devotees who have dedicated their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider named demigods like Lord Shiva or Brahma to be equal to independent named Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the order of spiritual master. 4. To bless in the Veda literature or literature pursuing the Vedic version. 5. To consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretation to the holy names of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on strength of chanting the holy name. 8. To consider chanting Hare Krishna one of the auspicious ritual activities, offering the Veda the fruit activities, karma, ganda. 9. To instruct a faithless person about the glorious holy name. 10. To not a complete faith in the chanting holy names, and to maintain material attachments in understanding so many instructions on this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to achieve desired success, Krishna Prema. Now let us have our most humble obeisances on all the Vaishnava devotees, Lord. Shri Chaitanya Shikshastakam ki jai. Cheto Darpana Marjanam Pavamaha Tavagni Nirvapanam Shriya Kairava Chandrika Vitaranam Vidyavatu Jivanam Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipadam Purnarmita Sadhanam Sarvatmasnapanam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bahuda Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatrapita Niyamita Smaranena Kalaha Etadesi Tava Kripa Bhagavam Mamapi Durudevami Tishamidha Janina Nurakaha Trinata Pisa Nichena Tarora Pisa Shnuna Amanina Manatena Kirtaniya Sata Harihi Na Thanam Na Janam Na Sundarin Kavitam Vajakadisha Kamaye Mama Jamani Jamanishware Pavata Bhaktir Haituki Toyi Ayinanda Tanuja Kinkaram Patitam Mam Vishame Pavam Puto Kripaya Tava Pada Pankaja Stithaturi Satisham Vichintaya Nayanam Karadashuru Taraya Vadanam Kadgada Rudaya Kira Pulaka Nichitam Vapur Kada Tava Nama Grahane Bhavishati Yugaitam Nimishena Chekshusha Pravisha Itam Shunya Itam Jagasarvam Govinda Virahe Name Ashrisava Padratam Pinnastumam Atarshanam Marmhatam Karotua Yathatava Vitatatu Lampato Mat Prananathastu Saeva Na Paraha Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. To Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleans the heart of all the dust accumulated for years, and extinguishes fire of conditional life, or repeat the birth and death. This Sankirtan movement is the prime benediction of humanity at large, because it spreads the rays and benediction of the moon. It is the life of all transcendent knowledge. It increases ocean transcendent bliss, and enables us to fully taste the nectar, for which always anxious. Oh my Lord, your holy name alone grant all benediction human beings. Thus you have hundreds, millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendent names invested all your transcendent energy. There are not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. Oh my Lord, out kindness enables us to easily approach you by holy name. But I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. One should chant the holy name of the Lord in humble state of mind, thinking oneself Lord in the strong street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. Oh Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor to desire beautiful women, nor do I want any noble photos. Only want your causeless devotional service, birth after birth. O Sahamananda Krishna, I'm an eternal servitor, yet somehow I fall into the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death, and place me as one of the atoms of the lotus feet. O Almighty Lord, I want my eyes be decked with tears of love flowing constantly when chanting holy name. When my voice choke up, I want to hear my body stand and the recitation of your name. O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering the moment to be like a great millennium. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna is my Lord, and shall remain so if he handles me roughly by his embrace. or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything, everything, for he is always my worshipable Lord, unconditionally. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshung Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manopishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurung Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragnatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakham Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Putale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Sarasate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nivishesha Shunyavadi Pachate Shatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Putale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varshapani Videvi Daitaya Kripaptaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Dayine Prabhavin Namaha Madhuryo Jala Premade Shri Rupa Nuga Bhaktita Shri Gaurakarana Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinadarine Rupanuga Virudapa Siddhanta Dvanta Harine Namo Gaurakishoraya Saksha Vairaka Murtaye Vipalambara Sambodhe Padam Pujayate Namaha Namo Bhaktivinodaya Sachidananda Namine Gaura Shakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gauravir Bhava Bhumistam Yadishta Sajanapriya Vaishnava Savabhama Shri Jagannathaya Te Namaha Vancha Kalpatarupishcha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratishin Namaha Pancha Tattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakham Namami Bhakta Shaktikam He Krishna Karna Sindho Dinabandho Jagapate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Surato Pangor Mamamanda Matergati Masarva Swapadam Bojo Radha Madana Mohano Divya Vindarana Kaupajumadaha Shimadra Nagara Singhasanasto Shrimad Radha Shira Govinda Devo Prishtari Bi Sevimano Smarami Shriman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsivata Tatastita Karasham Vinu Suner Gopir Gopinata Shayistuna Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarna Karanam Chintamani Prakara Satmasukha Praviksha Rakshariteshu Surabhi Rabipalayantam Lakshmi Sahasra Shatasam Brahmasevyamanam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Venum Kavanantam Aravinda Dalaya Daksham Parharvatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kantarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Alola Chantakala Savanamada Vamshi Ranangadam Panayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tripanga Lalitam Yata Prakasham Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Anganyasya Sakalintiri Vrittimanti Pashanti Panti Kalayanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chimmaya Satuchala Vigrahasya Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Advaitam Achotam Anadim Anantarupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vedeshu Durlapam Aduratam Atma Bhakto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Pajami Panta Sukoti Shatavassara Samprakamyo Vayurathapi Manaso Munipangavaanam Sopyasti yat prapadasimya vichinta tatve govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Ekopya saurya chaitum jagadanta kotim yachaktirasti jagadanta chayaya dantaha antantarastha paramanu chayantarastham govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Yad bhava pavitadiyo manuchastateva samprapya rupa mahimasana yana pusha suktaryam eva nikama pratithaistu vanti govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Ananta chimme rasa patipavitapi starpeya eva nijarupataya kalapihi goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhutto govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Premanjana churta bhakti vilochanena santha sadeva hridayeshu vilokayanti yam shama sundam achintya guna swarupam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. Ramadi murtishu kalanyamena tishtan nanavataram akaro bhuvaneshu kintu Krishna swayam samapava parama pumam yo govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all, and he has no other origin, and he's the prime cause of all causes. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor who is tending the cows, yielding all desire in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute with blooming eyes like lotus petals and head decked with peacock's feather, with the figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with the moon locket, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Sham Sundar is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure, unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha. Yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis, who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis, who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra suktas told by the Vedas by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, conveyances, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities, in the company of her confidants, Shakis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever-blissful spiritual rasa. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Sham Sundara, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts with the eye of devotion tinged with the salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna, and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Nishinga, Vamana, etc., as his subjective portions. Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai, Gaura Premanandi Haribol. Glorification of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Janmalasya yato nivyad itaratas chartesu avigyaswarat tene brahma hridaya adhikavaye muyanti yatsura yaha tejo varimadam vinimayo yatra chisargo misha damna srena sadadinasta kuhukam satyam param dhimahi. So someone can read.
O my Lord, Sri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the primeval cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion, as one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
Dharma, yes.
I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
Thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam 1. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Dharma Prochita Kaitravotra Paramo Namo Nirmatsanam Satam. Vedyam Vastavam Atra Vastu Shivadam Tapo Trayam Mulana. Srimad Bhagavate Mahamunikite Kimvapurir Ishwaraha. Sadyo Hridaya Varudyate Cha Kriti Vihisa Susabhistakshana. Completely rejecting. Okay, someone can read?
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated, this Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth, which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart. The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries. This beautiful Bhagavatam, compiled by the great sage Vyasdev in his maturity, is sufficient in itself for God realization. What is the need of any other scripture? As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of Bhagavatam, by this culture of knowledge, the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Very good. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.3. Nigama Kalpatarur Galitam Phalam Sukhamukad Amrita Dravya Samyutam Pibata Bhagavatam Rasam Alayam Mahur Aho Rasika Bhuvi Bhavaka. Someone can read? Read.
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam, the mature fruit activities, mature fruit of the desire tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was already relishable for all, including liberated souls.
Very good. Thank you very much. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskatya Desatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Srimad Bhagavatam Canto 3 Chapter 13 Verse number 1 The appearance of Lord Varaha. Shri Sukadeva Uvacha Nisamya Vacham Vadato Mune Punyatamam Ripa Bhuya Praracha Koraivayo Vasudeva Katadrita Shisuka Uvacha. The Shisuka Goswami said, Nisamya, after hearing, Vacham, talks, Vadata, while speaking, Mune, of Maitreya Muni, Punyatamam, the most virtuous, Nripa, O king, Bhuya, then again, Prapracha, inquired, Kauravya, the best amongst the Kurus, Vidura, Vasudeva Katha, topics on the subject of the personality of Godhead. Vasudeva, Adatrita, one who so adores. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So somebody can read?
A translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, O King, after hearing all these most virtuous topics from the sage Maitreya,
Speak a little louder.
Vidura inquired further on the topics of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which he adored to hear. Purport. The word adartha is significant because it indicates that Vidura had a natural inclination for hearing the transcendental message of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he was never fully satisfied, though continuing to hear those topics.
No continuing.
No continuing.
Though continuing, I'm sorry.
Though continuing to hear those topics, he wanted to hear more and more so that he could be more and more blessed by the transcendental message.
Wow, wonderful. We should all be like Vidura. We should all want to hear more and more and become more and more blessed by the transcendental message. Hare Krishna. Very nice. Vidura Uvacha Savai Swayam Bhuva Samrat Priya Putra Swayam Bhuva Pratilabhya Priyam Patnim Kim Chakara Tato Mune Vidura Uvacha. Vidura said, Sa, he, vai, easily, Swayambhuva, Swayambhuva Manu, Samrat, the king of all kings, Priya, dear, Putra, son, Swayambhuva, of Brahma, Pratilabhya, after obtaining, Priyam, most loving. Patim, wife. Kim, what? Chakara, did. Tata, thereafter. Mune, O great sage. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Vidura said, O great sage, what did Swayambhuva, the dear son of Brahma, do after obtaining his very loving wife? Text 3. Charitam tasya rajar ser Adi rajasya satama Bruhi me sadadanyaya Visvaksenasrayo hi aso. Charitam, character. Tasya, his. Rajarse, of the saintly king. Adi Rajasya, of the original king. Satama, O most pious one. Bruhi, kindly speak. Me, unto me. Sadadanaya, unto one eager to receive. Visvaksena, of the personality of Godhead. Ashraya, one who has taken shelter. He, certainly. Aso, that king. Okay, who can read?
Translation by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. O best of the virtuous, the original king of the kings, Manu, was a great devotee of the personality of Godhead, Hari. And thus it is worth hearing of his sublime character and activities. Please describe them. I am very eager to hear. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of the transcendental topics of the personality of Godhead and his pure devotees. In the absolute word, there is no difference in quality between the Supreme Lord and his pure devotee. Therefore, hearing the topics of the Lord and hearing of the character and activities of the pure devotee have the same result, namely the development of devotional service.
Haribol, Haribol. So this is really very significant because look at the eagerness of Vidura to hear more and more about Brahma Tattva, or the truth about the spiritual personalities. And he never gets satisfied by it. It's his enthusiasm just keeps increasing more and more. So this is wonderful, let's say, attitude to have if we have this same eagerness and, let's say, conviction that this is what we want to hear about. We don't care about the news. We don't care about sports. We don't care about the stock market. We don't care about all these other things. This is what we care about. We want to hear about the transcendental activities of pure devotees like Brahma and Manu and his wife Satarupa and so forth. So this is something that is exceptional that we should pay attention to, because if we develop that same eagerness, then we will be, let's say, blessed by Krishna and devotees. So in the 10th chapter, verse number 18, it says, Vistarenatmano yogam vibhutim cha janardana bhuya kataya triptirhi shinvato nasti me mritam. So this verse says, O Janardana, Janardana is another name of Krishna. Again, please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulences. I am never satiated, in other words, I'm never satisfied, in hearing about you. For the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. That's the same emotion that's in this verse that we just read in the third canto. This eagerness of genuine devotees to hear more and more about Krishna. So someone can read that purport. That's 10th chapter, verse number 18. 10:18. No, let someone else read it. Yeah. The ladies want to read? Go ahead.
Again, please describe in detail the mystic power of your opulence. I am never satiated in hearing about you. For the more I hear, the more I want to taste the nectar of your words. A similar statement was made by Sutta Goswami by the rishis of Naimisharanya, headed by Shaunaka. That statement is, one can never be satiated even though one continuously hears the transcendental pastimes of Krishna, who is glorified by excellent prayers. Those who have entered into a transcendental relationship with Krishna relish at every step the descriptions of the pastime of the Lord. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.19. Thus, Arjuna is interested in hearing about Krishna, and specifically how he remains as the all-pervading Supreme Lord. Now, as far as Amritam, nectar, is concerned, any narration or statement concerning Krishna is just like nectar, and this nectar can be perceived by practical experience. Modern stories, fiction, and histories are different from the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, in that one will tire of hearing mundane stories, but one never tires of hearing about Krishna. It is for this reason only that the history of the whole universe is replete with references to the pastimes of the incarnations of Godhead. The Puranas are histories of bygone ages that relate the pastimes of the various incarnations of the Lord. In this way, the reading matter remains forever fresh despite repeated readings.
Right. That's very, very important. In this matter, in this way, the reading matter remains always forever fresh despite repeated readings. Yes, that's exactly what we're experiencing. So this eagerness, this taste for hearing about Krishna, and it's insatiable. In other words, it never diminishes, it always increases. The more you hear, the more you want to hear. This is the symptom of a pure devotee. They're not interested in hearing the nonsense. They're interested in hearing this about the pastimes of the Lord. And there's so many different things that one can learn about the pastimes of the Lord. And now we're going to see. And therefore, in this purport you just read, it says, therefore, hearing the topics of the Lord and hearing of the character and activities of the pure devotee have the same result, namely the development of devotional service. That's why we have class. If you hear regularly of the pastimes of the Lord, the qualities of the Lord, the relationships of the Lord, the activities of the Lord, you develop this, it develops your devotional service. You want to do more and more. Why? Because you want to, in some way or other, please Guru and Krishna. That becomes the main purpose of life. Okay, that's text number 4. Shrutasya pumsam chirashramasya Shrutasya pumsam suchirashramasya Nanvanchasa suribir idito ritaha. Tat gunanus shravanam mukunda. Padara vindam hridaye suyesam. Okay, Shrutasya, of persons who are in the process of hearing, some, of such persons, Suchira, for a long time, Shramasya, laboring very hard, Manu, certainly, I'm sorry, Nanu, certainly, Anjasa, elaborately, Suribi, by pure devotees, Idita, explained by, Artha, statements, Tat, that, Tat, that, Guna, guna, transcendental qualities, Anushravanam, thinking, Mukunda, the personality of Godhead, who awards liberation, Pada Aravindam, the lotus feet, Hirdayesu, within the heart, Yesam, of them. Who would like to read? Anybody? Go ahead.
The person who hears from spiritual master with great labor and for a long time must hear from the mouths of pure devotees about the character and activities of pure devotees. Pure devotees always think within their heart of the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, who awards his devotional liberation.
His devotees' liberation.
His devotees' liberation. Purport by Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, you want to be liberated? Just keep going on hearing about Krishna. Very nice. Go ahead.
Transcendental students are those who undergo great penance in being trained by hearing the Vedas from a bona fide spiritual master. Not only must they hear about the activities of the Lord, but they must also hear about the transcendental qualities of the devotees who are constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. A pure devotee of Lord cannot be separated from the lotus feet of the Lord for even a moment. Undoubtedly, the Lord is always within the heart of all living creatures, but they hardly know about it because they were deluded by the illusory material energy. The devotees, however, realize the presence of the Lord, and therefore they can always see the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. Such pure devotees of the Lord are as glorious as the Lord. They are in fact recommended by the Lord as more worshipable than He Himself. Worship of the devotee is more potent than worship of the Lord. It is therefore the duty of the transcendental student to hear of pure devotees as explained by similar devotees of the Lord, because one cannot explain about the Lord or his devotee unless one happens to be a pure devotee himself.
How about that? Very interesting. Worship of the devotee is more potent than worship of the Lord. It is therefore the duty of the transcendental students to hear of pure devotees as explained by similar devotees of the Lord, because one cannot explain about the Lord or his devotee unless one happens to be a pure devotee himself. Okay. This is real transcendental knowledge. This is real transcendental wisdom. This is the, let's say, the pure understanding of Krishna consciousness. So it says, transcendental students are those who undergo great penance in being trained by hearing the Vedas from a bona fide spiritual master. Well, that's exactly what you're doing. You're undergoing great penance right now. You have to wake up early, you have to take a bath, you have to put on clothes, clean clothes, you have to come rush to the temple. There's Mangala Aarti, there's chanting, there's dancing, then there's class, and then there's hearing. This is all a type of, let's say, voluntary penance in being trained by hearing the Vedas from a bona fide spiritual master. Not only must they hear about the activities of the Lord, but they must also hear about the transcendental qualities of the devotees who are constantly thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. Well, Kamsa was always thinking about the Lord, but he was doing it in a negative way. Still, there was benefit because he was thinking about the Lord, even though it was negative. But pure devotees, they're always thinking about the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. A pure devotee of the Lord cannot be separated from the lotus feet of the Lord for even a moment. Undoubtedly, the Lord is always within the hearts of all living creatures, but they hardly know about it because they are deluded by the illusory material energy. Yeah, so many things take our minds off of Krishna and divert our attention from meditating on the beauty of Krishna, his wonderful instructions, his wonderful pastimes. We get diverted by mundane situations, their arguments, their lack of money, they could be cheating, they could be sense gratification. So many things are diverting the attention of people. But it says, a pure devotee of the Lord cannot be separated from the lotus feet of the Lord for even a moment. Undoubtedly, the Lord is always within the hearts of all living creatures, but they hardly know about it because they are deluded by the illusory material energy. The devotees, however, realize the presence of the Lord, and therefore they can always see the lotus feet of the Lord within their hearts. Such pure devotees of the Lord are as glorious as the Lord. They are, in fact, recommended by the Lord as more worshipable than he himself. Worship of the devotee is more potent than worship of the Lord. It is therefore the duty of the transcendental students to hear of pure devotees, as explained by similar devotees of the Lord, because one cannot explain about the Lord or his devotee unless one happens to be a pure devotee himself. Well, what's wrong with that? We should all become pure devotees. And we should all glorify other pure devotees. And of course, we should all be engaged in glorifying the Lord. This is real Krishna consciousness. Why? Because you'll go back to Godhead if you do that. You're not going to go back to Godhead being an expert on the stock market or being a superstar basketball player. Is there any transcendental, let's say, benefit by being able to dunk a basketball into the loop? No. So you see, people are distracted all the time. And it's because they're not hearing about Krishna. And they don't want to hear about Krishna. When we start a class, they walk out. Well, that's not Vidura. That's definitely not pure devotees. They want to hear more and more. And they can't get enough of it, just like it says here. Swadu, swadu, pade, pade. That is, those who have entered into a transcendental relationship with Krishna relish at every step the descriptions of the pastimes of the Lord. Now, how do we develop that taste? That's the whole point. Just like, how does a person develop a taste for smoking? Well, there's a taste there, right? Like Prabhupada will always make fun. You talk about this one brand of cigarettes called Cools. I don't know if you. Yeah. So he said, how can it be cool when it's fire? So, but people develop that taste. So they put some menthol and mix it with the tobacco. So when you inhale, it feels as if it's cooling here. But it's not cooling because it's hot, right? It's masking the hotness. So these are all tricks for developing taste. Just like someone may develop taste for sniffing cocaine. Someone may develop taste for eating meat, and so forth. People develop these tastes. But if you develop a taste for hearing about Krishna, that is real, and you're going to go back to Godhead. And you want to hear about Krishna's devotees also. So there's an interesting thing happening now. There's one devotee who is a good preacher. However, he criticized and made fun of two of the big heroes of Bengal, and they are Ramakrishna and his disciple Vivekananda. So he really gave a very critical and funny description of these two. And then the devotees in his temple, they publicized it as much as they could on social media. And all of a sudden, a whole bunch of Bengali, politicians and others became aware of it. Now, Prabhupada said more or less the same things about Vivekananda and Ramakrishna. But unfortunately, the devotees, thinking that they were doing the right thing, they really blasted it all over the social media in Bengal. And then there was a big backlash with all these big politicians and the followers of Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. They protested and started threatening. I don't know if you heard about this or not yet. So, what happened? ISKCON leaders sanctioned or punished this devotee for speaking like that about Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. Now, the question is, did they do the right thing? In other words, the leaders. Well, are you going to try and fight a bunch of radicalized followers of Vivekananda and Ramakrishna and politicians who are going to support them and trash all the work that ISKCON has done the last 50 years? I mean, you have to think about it, right? So the devotees decided to sanction the devotee that spoke like that, although he's a nice devotee and he's a very good preacher. But there is a letter from Prabhupada while he was still president, warning the leaders of ISKCON not to criticize Vivekananda and Ramakrishna in Bengal because they're very prominent I mean, all over India, they teach you about Vivekananda, right? In the books, they teach kids all over. And here we are trashing them. So it's caused a lot of trouble. Now, did ISKCON do the right thing? It depends. Well, if you take into account that Prabhupada wrote a letter when he was still present, saying don't do it. He said, somehow or other these two rascals have become very prominent, therefore don't criticize them. So we have to be very careful how we preach to the public and what we say. Why? Because it takes time for people to understand what the truth is. They don't understand right away, and especially if they've been taught since their childhood that these two people are the greatest heroes in the history of modern India. So if you're going to trash them, you better know what you're saying and what you're doing and how you do it. And you don't have to trash them. You can give practical examples of how. But see, you have to admit one thing. I mean, Vivekananda is a fantastic speaker. When he gave speeches, he was like really good at it. And he knew English very, very well. And he knew the philosophy of both Krishna consciousness and Mayavad. He was a Mayavadi, but he could explain Krishna consciousness also. He was a very smart man. But he was a Mayavadi. So to be able to explain all this to someone is not an easy thing, especially in the what you would call open media. It's something that has to be done very carefully and over a period of time, so that the people adhere can gradually, process all this information. You know, what is a Mayavadi? How does it differ from a pure devotee? And how Vivekananda, although a fantastic speaker, was actually just preaching Mayavad philosophy, and he misled a lot of people. In fact, all of Bengal. I remember one time I went to a nephew of Srila Prabhupada who had a watch repair shop in Calcutta. And I went with another devotee who lives in Calcutta. And when we entered his shop, I was looking around in the shop. He had this real big table, and he had all his workers, and he was there also watching them. And there was this big picture of Ramakrishna. So my friend that took me, he's a devotee, he said, Prabhuji, he said, where's the picture of Prabhupada? Why do you put Ramakrishna's picture? He said, it's not for me, it's for my workers. Very clever man, right? Well, that just gives you an idea of how popular they are, right? Ramakrishna and Vivekananda. So this is the nephew of Prabhupada. He doesn't put Prabhupada's picture up in his office or in his factory. He puts a picture of Ramakrishna. So to be able to, let's say, undo that or actually break it down to what it actually is and what it's not an easy thing, especially when there's a huge population of people that believe that these are the two greatest people that represented India and Bengal in modern history. Actually, Prabhupada has done way more than both of them. But they came a little bit before Prabhupada, and they have their own movement, and they do some welfare activity and so forth. Okay, so here we see how you have to be very careful when you choose your words. When you're speaking to an audience, you have to know, let's see, what the audience is capable of understanding. You're not going to explain, differential calculus to a monkey. A monkey has no way of understanding differential calculus. So, and you just get frustrated. So, therefore, we have to have a long-term strategy of, and the strategy is there, but if we lash out at these so-called famous people who've been glorified in elementary school all the way up to college, it's not gonna fly right away. It takes time. But ISKCON is growing rather very quickly now in India, and therefore, the more you become prominent, the more enemies you have, especially if you start trying to, let's say, disenfranchise or to destroy people's misconceptions about who is famous and who's not famous. So it has to be done very carefully on a long-term basis, not overnight with blasphemy. Okay, so are there any questions? Yeah.
I have a question. You did said about the preacher, he's a great preacher. So definitely he knows he should not be doing, but that moment when he tried to criticize, was it a plan made by Krishna or what? I mean, it didn't happen just, there might be some purpose behind it. I listen all his lectures and he's not that, but when he did for the Swami Vivekananda, did he
You heard what he said?
Yes.
And how was it?
And also nowadays the media had made it look more funny. The original was not that bad, but then now with the more emotions and act, it looks very funny. So, what is there a plan of a Krishna behind this or something? I'm just trying to think because it just didn't happen from nowhere sometimes.
Well, I mean, what we have to take into consideration is years ago, Prabhupada warned the leaders not to say anything about these two people, not to say anything derogatory about these two people. He said, the two rascals somehow or other have become very prominent, so don't say anything criticizing them. Huh? Yes. Yes. Right. So, if you have the whole educational system glorifying these two people, and from kindergarten all the way up to PhD, and then you come in and trash them, it's a shock, right? So, I mean, it's not going to happen overnight, let's put it like that. It's not going to happen overnight. And then they'll start doing it, they'll start trashing Prabhupada.
Yes.
And ISKCON.
Yeah.
Now there's more of them than us. So look what could happen, right? So it's not a good policy. You always have to know the power of your enemies. You have to have an estimation of the power of the enemies. You can't just assume you can say or do anything and it's going to be ignored. Especially since ISKCON is right now increasing very dynamically in India. Right. So, what's your question? Is this something that Krishna planned?
Yes.
Well, yeah, in this sense. If there was never a letter by Prabhupada saying don't do it, then you could understand, okay, he didn't know. But there is a letter, specific letter, where Prabhupada says don't do it. So he's violating what Prabhupada said. That you have to look at it like that. Right? You can't say, well, Prabhupada was trashing them all the time, and he never said we shouldn't do it. No, he did say you shouldn't do it. Prabhupada might be able to say it and get away with it, but not a young preacher. Right? So, no, it's not nice that a good preacher should be criticized for telling the truth, but there are certain circumstances you have to take into account. And like I said, because Prabhupada wrote that letter, he made a mistake. Definitely made a mistake. He should not have spoken like that. Okay, so are there any other questions? No? All right, we'll stop right there. Thank you. So tomorrow is the Derby Days. So one thing about the Derby Days, all the roads get closed at 10 o'clock. So if you're going to dance, you're going to sing, or you're going to do anything, you got to get there before 10 o'clock. Otherwise, you're going to have a hard time finding a parking place. If you have to carry something, it's going to be very difficult. So everyone should be on time, at least 9 o'clock in the morning. That way you'll have parking places and so forth. Okay? I've done this so many years. It's so much easier when you come early. Most devotees are coming late. Then they're, get later because they're trying to find a parking space and they can't find one. And then they have to walk a long distance, and if they have to carry something, the whole thing is, stressful. So whatever we're going to do, you have to carry mridungas, you have to do this or do that. You have to get there no later than 9 o'clock, at the latest 9:30, so that you can find a parking place that's close to the venue, and that you can be on time and not be stressed out. Okay? So you should give that message to all the ladies, all the men that are going to be there. I won't be there, so that's why I'm saying this. Yeah.
There is some confusion. We are hearing that there is no.
We don't have a booth. There's a big mix-up, so we don't have a booth. So no books, but all we're going to do is just distribute at least 1,000 invitations to Ananda Mela during the parade, and then after the parade, you can continue distributing for about 2 hours and then leave. Okay? And you can talk to people, and invite them to the Ananda Mela. Don't be no books, nothing, because we don't have a booth. So if we have a booth, we can sell books. We can do whatever we want, more or less. So this is a very strange thing that happened. I won't explain how it happened, but it's very unfortunate. But anyway, there's no loss. At least we're in the parade. Do we have a sign? We have a big sign? Yeah, the banner. Okay. Okay. All right. We need more volunteers. What?
This might actually be better also one way, because we will actually be out there meeting a lot more people, giving the flyers.
I hope, yeah.
Yeah, we should definitely.
But it should be more than 5, 6 people.
Yeah, we'll take as many, and then there's about 2,000.
Well, if you do 1,000, it's good. Okay. Thank you very much. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Just get there on time. If you get late, you're going to have a hard time finding parking, and it's just a hassle. They completely closed down all the roads You go 9 o'clock, there's no problem. You go 10 o'clock, you're not going to get in.